You're probably thinking, why am I talking about the Premier League? This is a channel that is specialised on the AFL, the Australian Football League, Aussie Rules, whatever you want to call it. However, for those who don't know, I'm obsessed with the Premier League. I support United and I've been following United for the last 10 years. And I thought, let's just express my opinions on where the 2023-24 season will finish up. What will the table look like once all 38 games have been played? And if you're not interested in the Premier League, I don't blame you for clicking off. Just go watch another one of my videos. I mean, I got this one. I got this one. Getting straight into it, I've got my relegation teams. There's no doubt that Sheffield, Burnley, and where is this last team? Luton will be in the bottom. All three teams that were promoted go down. The opposite of last year. Last year Fulham, Forest, and Bournemouth were promoted and all three teams stayed up. For this season, it's going to be a struggle. Sheffield will come dead last, then Burnley, then Luton. Sheffield, Chris Wilder's not going to save them. Vincent Kompany's doing awful at Burnley and he'll probably get sacked soon. And then Luton are actually doing really well. They're performing very well at home. It's just away from home they struggle, but ultimately their team is not good enough. In terms of the teams who will narrowly avoid the drop, I've got Forest. I think there is a lot of speculation about the sacking of their coach. Steve Cooper is just not performing well. He's got a load of players. They've invested a lot of money since breaking into the Premier League last season, and to be honest, the owner's not very happy with him, but they should be fine. Look, the gap between Forest and Luton in my eyes will be over 10 points. But Forest have been struggling at home, which is something that if you want to survive relegation and stay in the Prem, you need to have good home form. Also in there, always debating, look, I'll put teams that I'll be considering in there just to make life a little bit easier. And I'll go through all these teams I'm putting in there now about why they're finishing mid-table and stuff. But in terms of which of these 6 teams will be in that struggle city category, and as you can see, I've got all the different categories of struggle city, are the teams that they might be floating with promotion. This season, not so much, but generally other season, they'll be in relegation zone throughout most of the season. But which teams are going to go into struggle city? I'm going to put Wolves in 16th. I know Gary O'Neill has done a great job, like he did at Bournemouth. For Wolves, has been awesome. But the financial problems there, I don't think they're going to be able to invest because of financial fair play in the January transfer window. And to be completely honest, their team's just not great. They've lost so many good stars. Pedro Neto's injured, obviously. So I think I could see them coming 16th, maybe even 17th, but we'll stick them in 16th for now just because I feel like Gary O'Neill is doing better as a coach than Steve Cooper. Now, the irrelevant teams, I've got 12, 13, 14, 15 here. These are they're not anywhere near top 8, nowhere near Europe, but also nowhere near relegation. They're just doing their job. They're staying in the Prem. That's all teams sometimes want. Now, obviously, I have 5 teams here, so one of these teams I've got to put mid-table. Now, Palace to me will definitely be in this irrelevant category. Roy Hodgson is not inspiring me. He is going to keep them up, but they're not going to make any moves, any progressive moves with him at the helm, unfortunately. I know he's a great coach, but he's getting pretty old now. Everton, I would put them mid-table, but with that 10-point deduction, they're in great form now, but there's still no doubt that they don't have the greatest list. Their squad depth isn't awesome, and just the starting 11 is not the most inspiring. Brentford typically would be a mid-table club, however, the loss of Ivan Toney throughout the season, they're going to lose Ivan Toney January. Now, it hasn't happened yet. I'm recording as of the 18th of December, but you would assume Ivan Toney goes to Brentford. They could pick up Eddie Nketiah from Arsenal. You just don't know, maybe a swap move. As of recording, Buemo's injured, so they're just struggling, losing at home as well, in a bad patch of form, but they should be completely fine. I think Bournemouth are going to get 11th place. I love Areola. I think he's a great coach. What he did in Spain in his few years there, young Spanish talented coach who will definitely be coaching one of these big clubs down here. One of those clubs, the Arsenals to the West Hams, any of those clubs, Areola could do a good job at. Really great football, and Bournemouth, I think, have a shite team, so big respect to him for what he's doing for them. Fulham, obviously, Andre Silva, he's been doing a great job with them. If I had to order these, I would probably go in this order. I feel like Fulham are best suited to finish there. Everton would have had more points than Fulham, but with the 10-point deduction. But Sean Dyche is working magic with that team. Thomas Frank's doing all right with Brentford, but like I said, injuries. But, their list strategy and their, what's it called? The Moneyball process, they will keep them in good stead. Now, mid-table, which you could argue is, 12 to 15, I guess. But mid-table, definitely Chelsea are in there. And for me, one of these 2 clubs will also be in there. Now, I can only have 3 here. It's 9 to 11, 9, 10, 11. I've already said Bournemouth will be 11th. I think that's going to happen. Chelsea, my God, now I can make a whole video about Chelsea. The amount of YouTube videos in the last couple months, the last couple years about Chelsea spending ludicrous amounts of money the affluency of the club, just the completely, I don't even know what to say, but, obviously Todd Bowley's played Football Manager. He thinks that's going to help. Obviously, Brighton should finish higher. But Brighton are the one team out of these four that have Europe. They finished top of their table in Europa Leagues, and they could win it. I know there are some great teams in Europa League, but Brighton genuinely have a great chance of making moves there. It wouldn't surprise me if they did well. So that's sort of the reason, and injuries are fucking Brighton at the moment. I mean, their injury list is crazy. They're playing 18-year-olds, like many 18-year-olds in the Prem at the moment, or in Europe. Chelsea's such a hard one, right? I feel like Chelsea are just, surely they have to do better than 9th or 10th, right? Surely they can scrape an 8th place. And by the way, just quickly, with the new way the Champions League works, we don't know if we're going to get, 5th place could finish Champions League. Generally, it's been 1 to 4 get Champions League, but with the new coefficient thing, there is a chance that the Premier League, because it's one of the best leagues, and if the teams do well in Europe, they will get that 5th team, which I believe means pushes Europa League from 6th place to 7th. So you know what? We're just going to do this for now, whilst I'm editing this. So Champions League, traditionally, like I said, is 1 to 5. Ignore the 2 to 5, that's just a category. But because, like I said, the coefficient, we're going to do 2 to 5, Europa League 6 to 7, and Conference League will be 8. So who's going to make Conference League? I feel like it's really hard. If Brighton go out early in Europe, I think they will, because they can then fully focus on the league. If Chelsea get their shit together, they will. If West Ham maintain their form, they've replaced Declan Rice really well. They're astute. David Moyes knows what to do, but they are also in Europe, okay? I forgot to mention that. They're in Europa League because they won the Conference League. So don't crucify me for that. But, man, it's honestly a complete toss-up. I just feel like Chelsea eventually have to get something right. But that's boring, so I'm going to be putting Brighton in there because just style of play. If I had to trust the managers here, David Moyes, good, but not amazing. You know what? Moyes can get ahead of Poch. Poch, why you've hired a manager who's never won the league? He won a league in fucking Paris. Oh, in France, sorry, with PSG, but that was a given, and he actually lost one of the leagues there. And if you get given that PSG team, which had Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe, and you don't win the league, which you didn't for one of them, that's embarrassing. And then obviously, De Zerbi, the future coach of Man City, a lot of people are saying he will undoubtedly be, one of the greatest coaches in the next 20 years, and just purely because the game style of Brighton, once they get their players back, they should finish 8th. But I've gone Chelsea in 10th. Absolutely love hearing that. Music to my ears. Now, Europa League, I put it 6 and 7. The teams that'll be fighting for Europa League are definitely these teams. Now, for me, there's a clear gulf in, teams, albeit at the moment, Villa are actually second in the league, but, they have Europe, like a lot of these teams do. United and Newcastle, Tottenham, neither of those teams, none of them have Europe. United and Newcastle finished dead last in their groups. Fucking United finished below Galatasaray and Copenhagen. Absolutely disgraceful. So Villa's the only team out of these which have Europe, and they're in the Conference League, this league here, and that's a weak European league, so they really should be winning that. So they'll be thinking, that's a win. Focus on the Conference League a bit. So you got to keep that into account, all right? Injuries have absolutely ruined Newcastle, but they should get their players back. United need to make big moves in the January window. And Spurs, once Van der Ven and Maddison get back from injury, they will jump up. So the question is, who's finishing 6 and 7, right? It's a pretty tough question. I think Villa will definitely not finish 6th or 7th. What Unai Emery is doing, I mean, such a fail at Arsenal, and he comes to Villa where currently they are just below Arsenal, arguably doing just as well. They beat Arsenal at home. Their home form was absolutely amazing. The only thing that might stop them is their away form and also just squad depth. I think they're on a great run of form, but people do forget they don't have massive injuries. Like if they lost an Ollie Watkins, or they lost a Douglas Luiz, or, even Emi Martinez in goal, that's a big drop off. McGinn as well. So just wait till injuries hit them. With the amount of games they're going to have to play with Europe, it's inevitable that they will get an injury. So I'm not as bullish on what they can do. They're definitely a title contender, but that's given no injuries, which I don't think is going to happen. And out of these two teams, who's going to finish 7th and 6th? I think United screams 6th place. Like, now we're out of Europe, we'll finish in 6th. And I think Newcastle will finish in 7th. The injuries are a lot worse in Newcastle at the moment, at the time of recording. They've lost some more players in the game they just played. I think it was against Fulham. So they're just so unlucky. They really should, if both teams were fully fit, I think Newcastle would finish above United. But, you know, and a lot of this comes down to the January transfer window and AFCON. I'm going to talk about AFCON with Liverpool as well. But African Cup of Nations, that is a competition, and I'm not sure what the Asian one is, but the Asian Cup of Nations, that's the name. But basically, those two continents, anyone who's from those continents will leave for quite a few weeks to play there. You know, for example, for Spurs, Heung-min Son's going to go. For, you know, Liverpool, Mo Salah's going to go. Not that he's fit, but Thomas Partey is going to go. Tomiyasu's going to go, but he's, you know, injured as well. You get what I mean, but there's something you got to consider, and the January transfer window. Now, I think United will be buying a massive centre-back in the January window. Newcastle, what position will they go for? Probably goalkeeper, because Nick Pope's out for a long time. And then from there, do they have the funds? I know FFP is really restricting both United and Newcastle at the moment. So can they even dig out their pockets in the window? I'm not so sure. I think Spurs will finish above them though. That's just the reality. Once they get Maddison and Van der Ven back, they should be fine. However, you got to worry about Spurs because their game style is sort of lends itself to being prone to injuries. Like, it's so physical and fast-paced and endurance and stuff like that, that I feel like the players' bodies might not be prepared for that, and that's kind of why they're getting a lot of injuries. But let's be real, if they even make, you know, 2 to 3 astute signings in the January transfer window, which adds depth, which they need, they will be fine. But they are losing Sarr and a couple other players in the AFCON, so that's going to be a struggle for them. They definitely need backup in the defensive stock. CDM, you know, they need a 6 probably, and definitely a centre-back. But in terms of the forward line, they're doing well, but they'll be fine. Now let's get all the teams up and champions. Who is going to win the Premier League? That is the true question of this video. That's what a lot of people care about. Now, like I said before, I don't think Villa will win because of Europe. They haven't had many big injuries. Unai Emery is amazing in Europe, not so much in the league, so they're definitely going to focus on the Conference League more than Europe. Spurs, the injuries, they're going to be out still for quite a little bit longer, and there's no guarantees those injuries will happen again, and I just don't think they have that quality or depth there over the 3 teams above. Arsenal, Liverpool, City. A big thing is AFCON. Liverpool are going to lose Mo Salah. The biggest loss out of any of these teams from AFCON or the Asia Cup is Mo Salah. They're going to struggle. They're really going to struggle. Tomiyasu, Partey, if they are fit at the time of AFCON and the Asia Cup, they're going to go. City, I mean, Mahrez is gone now, but I'm trying to think, do City have any African players or Asian players? They probably do, but I can't really think of any right now. So that's something to keep in mind, especially for Liverpool, I think. I'm pretty sure they have one more African player maybe that they're going to struggle without. Now, out of these 3 teams, January is going to be massive. There's no doubt that Liverpool have the funds to spend. You know, they bid over 100 mil for Caicedo, and then they bought Endo for what, like 20, 30. So they have 70 million to work with. Arsenal, they've been linked with Ivan Toney as the sort of striker. They can get some money for Eddie Nketiah, get him out the door. Finally, they have a prolific goal scorer because Gabby Jesus, we all know that's not his strength, finishing, all right? It's not his strength. He's versatile, but unfortunately can't finish his dinner. With City in the January window, you would assume they're going to go for a backup for Rodri because Calvin Phillips, you know, Matheus Nunes hasn't been good. They're relying on a lot of their young players to play that sort of defensive role. Kovacic hasn't been great for them. So there's definitely some midfield problems, and losing Gundogan has very much affected them. But all 3 of these teams will dig out a lot of money in their pockets in the January window. Liverpool will definitely get a 6. Endo's not good enough in the 6. Gravenberch hasn't taken the world by storm. And they need another centre-back because Matip is out with the ACL for the season. So that's 2 positions they need. Like I said, City probably just get in a midfielder or, you know, a 6 or an 8 because De Bruyne's going to come back, and, you know, can you drop De Bruyne or Julian Alvarez? I don't know. Some question marks there. But definitely those 2 positions they'll go for. And Arsenal, a big striker, you know, an Ivan Toney, and probably for Arsenal looking at a left-sided 8 because, or maybe a 6. It depends if they want to play Rice as a 6 or an 8. Rice has been really good in both positions throughout his career, and especially for Arsenal. And you know, Odegaard's not had the greatest season, so it would be good to have some pressure on Odegaard to perform. He is the captain, and this season he hasn't been the best. So a lot of things there. I don't think Liverpool win the league. I think when Mo Salah goes out, they're really going to struggle. They struggled, you know, as the time recording, they just played United this morning at Anfield, and they couldn't score. Darwin Núñez was awful, and how United, one of the worst United teams in history, how they didn't concede a single goal, kept a clean sheet against Liverpool at home is crazy. And Liverpool's strength is their attack. Their defense, now Matip is out, and their midfield with no, you know, real recognized great 6 central defensive midfielder, they're going to struggle. And I just think the style of play and the fact, and this is another key point, they're in Europe, but they're in the Europa League. They're not in the Champions League. You would think that Liverpool are by far the favourites in Europa League. They should definitely beat teams of Brighton, West Ham, and anyone else is in there. So they might have a focus on the Europa League. I'm not sure what Klopp's going to do. They've unlocked Trent. Robertson's gone for a while. It's a lot of question marks there. What's their forward line going to do with Mo Salah not there? Questions. So who's going to be champions? I think the champions will be the Arsenal Football Club. I'm just joking, not Manchester City. I think Arsenal win it. And it pains me to say, because despite, the rivalry being, the derby against City, no one wants Arsenal to win. All of my mates are Arsenal fans, and it bugs me to say this, but I think they're primed. They learnt lessons from last season. They're in the same position where they're maybe two wins ahead of City, I think around 6 points. Yes, they still have to play City at the Etihad, so that's probably a 6-point game that they're going to lose, so that'll be 3 points. But I just think Arsenal are more well suited. They're definitely going to be more hungry for the league. I mean, City are coming off a treble. Gary Neville said, after United won the treble back in the day, the season after, they still won the league, but it was just, no one was good, and the hunger wasn't there. And I think now Pep's in a bit of a transitional period with City. He's definitely finding the best midfield mix. He's trying to fit in Julian Alvarez in there. Is Phil Foden going to play on the wing in the midfield? Who's going to play for Rodri when he's out? They're going to lose Calvin Phillips. Rico Lewis, is he good enough? I think he is. Oscar Bob. I feel like they're playing a lot of young talent, and Pep just, I don't know. I'm not sure what's going on with him, but there's every chance City win the league. Let's be real. It's fucking City. The same could happen every season bar the COVID season where Liverpool won, where if City do go behind, like they've done against Liverpool, like they've done against Arsenal, they just win. They just go on those 10, 15 game winning streaks, and they just creep up on you, and they just have the quality. But I think Arsenal in January, if they do sign Ivan Toney, which I'm sort of basing this a little bit on, their whole game style is going to change. They can finally have some confidence in a striker finishing. We've seen Eddie Nketiah is not reliable, and his link-up play, his hold-up play is just not the best. Gabby Jesus is amazing at every facet of a striker, except the finishing. So maybe, Gabby Jesus could move out to the left. Martinelli's not performing great this season, in my opinion at least. Robbie disagrees, but there's definitely a position there, and I feel like Arsenal, they will improve with that signing more than if City sign a CDM or a centre mid. And this is all just a pure guess. AFCON won't affect either team that much, nor the Asian Cups, and I think Arsenal just look primed. As long as Saliba stays fit, as long as Declan Rice stays fit, they should be fine. I even think if they lose Saka for a month or so, Trossard's shown how good he is. You can play Gabby Jesus on either wing. He's pretty versatile up forward, but the inevitability of City is scary. In terms of, the Champions League, which both these two teams are in, and the only two remaining Prem clubs, they both finished top of the table, or top of their group, in the Champions League. So you would assume they get pretty easy teams in the round of 16, which means they go through. If either two of these teams drop out early from the Champions League, they'll be able to focus on the league more, and subsequently will be more likely to do well in the league, if you get what I'm saying. They won't have to rest players. It's not, a Thursday, Sunday, Saturday, whatever. There's a lot of variables that we can talk about. But ultimately, this is what I think the league is going to be, which means I'm going to drop City down into second place and Liverpool into third. Now, do you agree with this list? Let me know. Should I make more videos like this touching on the Premier League? Let me know, because I absolutely love this shit. And make sure to subscribe and like. Follow the TikTok, FT Footy, and I'll be seeing you in another video, which might be Premier League.